The reason behind the rhythm. Today we're going to dig into the weaponized slip, which everybody knows is skull and bones. Let's talk about it.
My bloody history, violence is what you gifted me, made me into a monster. Look at what you did to me. Murdered my sister while she was sleeping in the bed. Enslaved my little brother cause a hoodie on his head.
Alright, so we're going to start this series out with a tried and true favorite, skull and bones. So where does skull and bones actually come from? Skull and bones, it can be argued, comes from boxing. We see examples of it being used by George Foreman, Floyd Patterson, and other great boxers from back in the days. When we look at the structure of skull and bones, what we're doing is stacking our arms on top of each other, placing a barrier between ourselves and the opponent's incoming punches. As a defense, this cross-arm posture is good, right? It's not the greatest, but it serves a purpose. However, what it doesn't do is deny the opponent his assets. So one of the instructors in the 52 VTK, the block doctor Rich Meagher, out of Connecticut, likes to call 52 blocks anti-boxing. What's his accurate description of the system? Because originally, 52 started as an answer to a question. That question being, how do you beat the boxer? The answer, attack him from angles he wasn't accustomed to defending and defend in ways that he wasn't accustomed to attacking. And this is where skull and bones comes in. But before we take an actual look at that, let's take a couple steps back, right? Let's talk about the individuals behind this thing. So one in particular, my primary teacher, Minister Alik. Because see, in order to answer that question properly, you would first have to understand boxing. And Minister Alik was a top tier boxer. This article right here was written about Minister Alik back in the early 2000s. And they speak about his Golden Gloves accomplishments and the fact that he had qualified for, I believe it was the 1972 Olympics. So he was an individual who had an intimate understanding of the ins and outs of boxing, both the offensive and the defensive aspects of the system, and what would be the best means to go about compromising that and turning it against the boxer. From the offensive perspective, one of the boxer's most dangerous tools is his jab. Because if he's allowed to use his jab, he can use that jab to pick you apart at a distance. He'll use that jab to test your reaction time, your response time, and what you do, right? So you want to be able to take his jab from him, because if you take his jab from him, you already got half the fight won. This is important because if we look at the cross guard that I mentioned earlier, here, while it provides a solid defense, it is just that, defending. It's not really being proactive, right? So if the guy shot his jab and you did this, that's pretty much a controlled movement. Boom, he may hurt his hand, but it's not gonna do any debilitating damage. Understanding this, the brothers who was putting together these various aspects of the different prison fighting arts that became 52 blocks was like, okay, cool, we gotta do what's called asset denial, right? Not the term they use, the term I'm using right now, right? And this asset denial goes back because in the Book of Five Rings, Musashi speaks to the fact that if you only fight a defensive fight, that is not the way of killing the enemy. You can't keep parrying and think you're gonna win. So you have to parry and strike. He calls this to skull, tut tut. And in doing so, you deny them the attack and then take their life, deny the attack, take their life. The 52 aspect of this with regards to skull and bones is basically weaponizing another boxing move, the slip. When we look at the slip, the mechanics of the slip are we getting our head offline, letting the punch go past us as we move, which would essentially set us up for a counter. The problem with that though is that when I slip, even if I hit here, I'm allowing him to keep this weapon, which means he can use it again later. And I don't want that. I want to try to take his offensive assets from him as quickly as possible. So in answering of how we deny this weapon to the opponent, what the pioneers of 52 did was, okay, we can take the cross guard, and if we slip at the same time we do the cross guard, we are now putting our elbow where our head was. We don't need to guide the punch. We don't need to chase the punch. All we need to do is move our head and put our elbow there. Why this works is this. If I do this, my elbow's over here, my head is in front of the glove. As soon as I go to do the movement to slip, my elbow's right in front of the glove. There's no magic to it. This is just gonna happen by default. In this way, this allows us to weaponize the slip, thus denying the opponent his primary offensive weapon, which is his jab. If he doesn't have the jab, I don't have to worry about that being an issue anymore because he can't test range, he can't test reaction or response. In addition to that, it elicits a pain response in him. When I do this, his hand is gonna come back like this, and since I know that, boom, and I open up with this, I turn this either hammer fist or into a grab to open, and I can shoot my straight left. See how that works? So I'm immediately going from the counteroffensive because I'm attacking that jab with this elbow, boom, to the offensive by turning what would have been my jab into a straight left. That right there is the why behind the Skull and Bones, why it's in the system, why it's pertinent, and what it's actually used for. Again, 52 isn't about waving your hands around like you're casting spell. Every movement should serve a purpose. There is no wasted movement in the system. As again, the block Dr. Rich likes to says, everything the 52 practitioner does should suck for the other guy, right? Every time our hands move, they make a shape that sucks for the opponent, right? So this is one example of that. And like I said before, over the next couple of weeks, I'm gonna give you examples of a couple more, what they were used for, and why they're inside the system. So that was our first look at the reason behind the rhythm and the logic behind the blocks. I hope you enjoyed that. If you did, drop a like, comment, and let me know what you like about it. If you didn't like it, still drop a comment, let me know what you didn't like. Shadow 52 VTK, and I will see you on the other side. Harambee.